Hello, and welcome to The Brief Insight, your go to podcast for breaking down the latest trends, research, and policies shaping our world. Whether you're passionate about sustainability, global economics, or emerging innovations, this is where we simplify complex ideas to keep you informed and inspired. If you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to our channel, and share it with anyone looking for insights that matter. We're here every Monday and Friday, so hit that notification bell to stay updated. Your support helps us grow and continue bringing you sharp, relevant content that sparks conversation. Thank you for tuning into The Brief Insight. Now let's dive into today's topic.
All right, welcome back. Today we're going to we're going to head over to West Africa.
Okay.
And look at this situation brewing with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger,
Yeah.
and their decision to leave ECOWAS.
It's definitely been a lot of news about it.
It has, yeah.
A lot of people have been asking about it, sending in reports, sending in articles.
Yeah, and it seems like a pretty big deal, right? I mean,
It was a big deal.
to have three countries, kind of foundational members of this organization, decide to leave.
Essentially, they're founding members who are deciding to just pack up and go create a rival group.
Right, yeah,
So,
like a club
yeah, it's like a club.
with some infighting,
Exactly.
and they decide to split off.
Yeah, and it has everyone wondering what's going to happen, what's going to be the fallout.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that people are wondering is what happens to all the people who are relying on this block, right, for free movement,
The free movement.
in trade,
Exactly.
and all of that.
It's a huge question looming over this whole thing.
Yeah.
But before we get into all of that,
Okay.
maybe it would be helpful to just give a quick rundown of what ECOWAS even is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I know what it is, but
Okay. So
yeah, just explain it to the listeners who might not be.
Yeah, so ECOWAS,
It's super familiar.
it's like the main political and economic team for all of West Africa.
Okay.
So it's been working to bring these countries together, boost cooperation, all that.
Since 1975, right?
Yeah, 1975. So it's kind of like
A long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the EU.
for West Africa,
Yeah, for West Africa.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So then why are these countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger,
Yeah.
why are they so set on leaving?
Well, things haven't exactly been smooth sailing.
All right.
Since 2020, all three of those countries have experienced military coups.
So like military takeovers.
Yeah, basically military takeovers of the government.
And ECOWAS was not a fan of that, right?
No, not at all. They want to see democratically elected
Exactly.
leaders in charge.
That's their whole thing. Like, we want democratic
Right.
processes.
Stability, yeah.
Yeah. They condemned the coups. They suspended the countries.
Right.
And said, you need to get back to civilian rule.
Okay.
But these military juntas, the guys in charge now, they weren't backing down.
Right. They're digging in their heels.
Exactly. They dug in. They accused ECOWAS of being like puppets of the West.
Okay.
And then they turned to Russia for support.
So we've got some of those global power dynamics at play.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a huge part of this.
Interesting.
And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
These three countries, instead of just like going it alone, they've formed their own little alliance.
Okay.
They're calling it the Alliance of Sahel States, the AES.
The AES. It's like,
Okay.
you don't want us in your club.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll make our own club.
Exactly. We'll go make our own club.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So I know that they announced that they wanted to leave back in January of 2023, aiming to be fully out by January 29th, 2025.
Yeah.
But then something happened more recently, right?
Yes. So according to the BBC, just this past December, ECOWAS offered them a 6-month grace period.
Oh.
So now the final exit date is July 29th, 2025.
So they pushed it back a little.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to keep the door open a crack,
Okay.
hoping that maybe these countries will, like, reconsider,
Come back.
Yeah, exactly.
What I've been reading is that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are saying, no, this is it, we're done.
Yeah, they're calling it irreversible.
Irreversible, yeah.
No.
So beyond just disagreeing with ECOWAS about the coups, what's really driving this whole breakup?
Well, I think there are a couple of things to unpack here.
Right.
One major factor is the whole fight against terrorism.
Okay.
The Sahel region where these countries are located,
Mm-hmm.
it's facing a very serious security crisis right now.
Yeah, it's scary over there.
Yeah, armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS are really causing chaos.
Yeah, and you sent me some information from the Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect,
Yeah, that's a good one.
and they called it a current crisis. They said there are potential crimes against humanity and war crimes happening.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's intense.
And they pointed out that over 12,000 people were killed last year alone, mostly civilians.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
It's devastating.
really devastating.
So these three countries, they're saying that ECOWAS hasn't been effective in tackling this problem.
Okay.
They're arguing that they need to go their own way to effectively combat these terrorist groups.
Potentially with Russia's help.
Yeah, potentially.
And that brings us to the Wagner Group,
Yeah.
which I have to admit I had to do a little side research on.
Oh, okay.
But essentially they're like Russian mercenaries
Yeah, private military contractors.
operating in Mali.
Right.
And they've been accused of some pretty serious human rights abuses.
Yeah, which obviously further complicates the whole situation.
Absolutely.
So you've got this region struggling with terrorism, military coups, and now the involvement of these external actors.
Mm-hmm. It's messy.
It's a really messy situation, yeah.
So one of the articles was highlighting how ECOWAS citizens
Yeah.
currently have the right to live and work in any member state.
Right, there's a free flow of people and goods.
Yeah.
That's one of the, cornerstones of ECOWAS.
Right. And a lot of people rely on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, if ES goes through with this, what happens to those people?
Yeah, that's where the human cost of all of this really
Yeah.
becomes clear. You have to remember these three countries, they're landlocked.
Mm-hmm.
And they're economically disadvantaged compared to a lot of the coastal nations in ECOWAS.
Right.
People rely on being able to move freely, to find work, to find better opportunities.
Yeah. So if they can't do that,
Exactly.
that's a major problem.
Yeah, and the AES has said, oh, we'll have visa-free travel for ECOWAS citizens.
Okay.
But is that really a sustainable solution?
All right. Like, will
Will it really guarantee the same level of freedom and opportunity?
Yeah, it's a good question.
That's one of the big unknowns.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
So it's not just about movement, it's about livelihoods too.
Mm-hmm.
What does this split mean for the economies of all the countries involved?
That's another huge piece of this puzzle.
Yeah.
The BBC pointed out that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger together,
Yeah.
they represent a significant portion of ECOWAS's overall economy.
Okay.
They have a combined population of 76 million people.
That's a lot of people.
So their departure is going to leave a dent,
For sure.
It's going to have an impact.
So is the AES even economically viable on its own?
It's tough to say for sure.
Yeah. Can they replace the trade and partnerships that they had within ECOWAS?
That's a big question.
It is.
They definitely face a lot of challenges, especially with their reliance on land routes for trade.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're going to have to find new ways to make things work if they want to avoid economic hardship.
And on the other side of that, ECO is going to have to figure out how to deal with this loss too.
Yeah, they've got their own work cut out for them.
So it seems like a very uncertain future for everybody.
It is, yeah.
But before we get into all of the potential consequences, maybe we should look at what signs of hope there are.
Okay.
Is there any chance of reconciliation or at least some kind of working relationship?
Yeah, let's take a look.
I mean, it does feel like everybody's kind of holding their breath a little bit.
Yeah.
Wondering if things can be patched up.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any signs in these reports
Well,
that suggest that there's a path forward?
it's not all doom and gloom.
Okay.
There are a few glimmers of hope.
Okay.
One encouraging thing is that Senegal's president is stepping up to try to mediate between ECOWAS and these three countries.
So kind of a peacemaker role.
Yeah, exactly.
That's promising.
It is.
Yeah.
And you know how we were talking about the AES's promise of visa-free travel for ECOWAS citizens?
Yeah.
That's another little hint that they're not looking to completely sever ties. There seems to be at least some desire to maintain,
Some kind of working relationship.
yeah, some level of cooperation.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably realized complete isolating themselves wouldn't help anyone.
Right,
It's
exactly.
like they want to have their cake and eat it too.
Exactly.
But then I also saw,
Oh, and there's this other interesting development.
yeah, go on.
It's small, but I think it's kind of symbolic.
Okay.
Air France has resumed flights to Bamako
Oh, wow.
after a 2-month suspension after the coup in Niger.
Wow, I didn't even see that in the reports.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Yeah, why is that significant?
Well, I think it's a sign that despite all the political craziness, everyday connections are still being maintained,
Okay.
So it suggests that maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
cooler heads will prevail and that some kind of compromise.
Some middle ground.
Yeah, some middle ground can be reached.
I hope so, because as we've been discussing, the stakes are so high.
Oh, yeah.
The security crisis, the economic problems, impact on people's lives.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to grapple with.
It is. And it's also important to remember this isn't just some isolated event happening in a corner of the world.
Yeah.
It has big implications.
Particularly for the region.
Yeah, for the entire region, even beyond.
Yeah.
The Sahel is a key strategic location.
Okay.
So what happens there can really affect global security, migration patterns, all sorts of things.
It's interesting, listening to all of this, I think we often talk about these regional blocks, like ECOWAS, as if they're these fixed, unchanging things.
Yeah.
But this situation is showing us that they're actually quite dynamic.
Totally.
And they're constantly evolving.
That's a great observation. We tend to think of borders and alliances as like set in stone.
Right.
But they're much more fluid than we realize.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes...
And sometimes it takes a shakeup like this.
Yeah.
To force us to re-examine those structures.
Okay.
And ask, are they still working?
Yeah, are they serving their purpose?
Exactly.
It's like, this whole thing is a stress test.
It is.
For regional integration in the 21st century.
Totally. It's a real-time experiment playing out on a huge scale.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe this crisis, as messy as it is, could lead to some new, innovative...
Yeah, some new ways of thinking.
Yeah, new forms of cooperation, maybe a more responsive system.
That works better for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. That better addresses the needs of the people and the realities of the region.
It's definitely something that deserves our attention.
For sure.
So I want to make sure we connect all of this back to our listener.
Yeah, let's do that.
At the end of the day.
It's important to remember we're not just discussing these, like, abstract concepts.
Right.
This has real-world consequences.
Yeah, so as we're reaching the end of our deep dive here, we want to leave you with some questions.
Okay, yeah.
Just to ponder,
I like that.
to spark your own curiosity.
Keep you thinking.
Encourage you to stay engaged with this story.
Yeah, engaging with these kinds of issues, even when they feel overwhelming.
Absolutely.
It's important.
So here's what we want you to think about.
Okay.
First, considering everything we've discussed, what do you see for the future of the Sahel region and for ECO?
Yeah.
Will this become permanent, or will we see some kind of reconciliation?
Good question.
And second, how can we achieve stability and security in the region while also protecting civilians?
Yeah, especially with all the violence.
Right, and the involvement of Russia.
Yeah.
And then finally, what role can the international community play in supporting peace and development?
In
this really fragile part of the world.
Yeah, those are all excellent questions.
Yeah.
And while there are no easy answers, I think engaging with these questions is a really important step in understanding this region.
Yeah, it's a region full of complexity.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's also full of resilience, cultural richness.
Yeah, there's so much potential there.
Yeah, a lot of potential.
So this is the end of our deep dive, but the story's not over.
It's far from over.
We encourage you to stay curious, keep exploring this.
Yeah. Keep learning.
Keep seeking out different perspectives.
Absolutely.
Because it's important.
It is.
It's easy to get lost in the headlines and the politics of it all. But at the end of the day, this is about people's lives.
Absolutely.
In Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and the whole region.
It is. Their lives are being shaped by these decisions.
Exactly. And one thing that I saw in one of the articles was how this could impact migration patterns.
Oh, yeah.
People move across borders for work, often following routes that have existed for a long time.
Yeah, for generations.
So if all the rules change, what happens to those patterns?
That's such a good point. We can't just look at, maps and trade agreements.
Right.
We have to think about the human impact. What about the families who rely on sending someone to another country to work and sending money back home?
Yeah, their income.
Exactly. Or the traders who rely on open borders to move their goods.
Yeah.
Their livelihoods are on the line.
Right. It's all connected.
It's all connected.
And that makes the potential consequences so much more real.
It does. It reminds us that there are no easy answers here.
Right.
Even if the AES makes a system outside of ECOWAS, there will be disruptions.
Yeah.
There will be adjustments.
People are going to be affected.
Exactly. And it's those everyday people who feel it the most.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
It makes you realize we need to be paying attention to what's happening.
We do.
Not just because of the politics, but because of how it impacts real people.
Absolutely. And that's what I think makes these deep dives so important.
Yeah, it's not just a political chess game.
Yeah.
It's about the human stories.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that even though we're far away,
Yeah,
these events are shaping the world
they are.
in ways we might not even realize.
It's true. The choices that leaders make, that regional groups make, that individuals make, they have these ripple effects.
That we don't even see.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we hope we've given you a better understanding
Yeah, a more nuanced perspective
of what's going on.
this whole situation in West Africa.
The complexities, the challenges.
And maybe even some of those glimmers of hope.
Yeah, because there are some.
There are a few.
We want you to stay curious.
Yeah, stay engaged.
Keep learning about this region.
And the people.
Because
their stories matter.
they do. Their stories are our stories.
And their future is connected to ours.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into another part of the world.
We'll see you then.